going to ask the chat. I guess before we do that, I did have a poll question in there, and it was, which position do you want to attack first? Offensive tackle, wide receiver, interior offensive line, or backup quarterback? Offensive tackle was the one that wound up winning that vote. So when we build our top 5 free agent list, you'll see right here, selected by the chat, the first option we're going to go is with the offensive tackle at number 1. But I want to go through our list first. Matt, why don't you take us through your list of players and kind of explain your top 5, and then I'll go to Green Bean, and then I'll throw mine in at the end.
Absolutely. Okay. So for this one, I went, not necessarily that like they could sign all 5. Like I think it's unrealistic that the Jets could sign all these guys, but these are the players that I would be looking to target. T. Higgins came in at number 1. I think he's someone who has shown the ability to be a number 1 receiver, but well, they drafted Jamar Chase and suddenly he becomes a 1B and is a very, very good 1B. Mike Onwenu, I put number 2 because I don't really love a lot of the bigger name tackles, but I like Onwenu's flexibility, that he could play either guard or tackle. I like him better than Trent Brown. I think he's a little bit more consistent. And I think he's kind of just reaching his potential now. So I'd rather go that route than potentially overpay for someone who's maybe a little bit more of the proven name. Calvin Ridley came in next because I think it's important for the Jets to fix wide receiver through free agency and or trade. And, you know, those would be my top 2 realistic targets. I don't really think Mike Evans is a realistic target. Michael Pittman, I don't think is shaking free. So that's why Ridley comes in 3. Kevin Zeitler, just going with best caliber guard. Guards usually tend to be a little bit cheaper than tackles. Now, Zeitler is a little bit up there in age, so it would kind of be like that Alan Faneca ad in his mid-30s for the final couple years of his career. And finally, backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett. I think he's the best backup quarterback on the market. I would get him paid and taken care of on day 1. So those are my 5.
Ooh, I like that. I did see a report today. They were thinking T. Higgins is expected to get the tag, so I guess it just sort of shifts everything slightly down 1. Green Bean, I see your list is looking I'm kind of like a hybrid almost between the two of you, I think. Green Bean, why don't you walk us through your list?
Well, to be clear, I had I'm really
7 names, Green Bean, 7 names.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I took your first one you wrote, and I didn't write down 6 because I said 5.
Well, it's a funny thing because, right, he's asked for a top 5, and I just kept writing people. But interestingly enough, I completely spaced on backup quarterback. I don't know how I'm seeing that. I'm like, oh my God, how the hell did I not do that? So I don't know. Look, I don't love Jonah Williams specifically, but I think that, getting him over, he's going to be less expensive than like a lot of, every year if there's like a premium tackle out there. When you look at Spot Track, his market value is around $13 million. And I think that he would be a solidifying presence on the left side. There are other options that I like. I just don't want to see us go into the draft with that desperate need now, and that's even whether or not we're planning to use ABT at one of the tackle spots. I don't know. I think that ABT should be penciled in at guard and just leave him there, and we should work on the tackles. But so I just don't want to go into the draft with that glaring, obvious need like you've talked about, Ryan. All somebody has to do is, like, God forbid, if Joe Alt is sitting there at 9, we're getting jumped. Like there's no doubt in my mind. So I'd hate to see us so obviously needing that. If it's not Jonah Williams, it could be, there's a few other guys that I like as well. I like Tyler Boyd, just like you talked about. I mean, I would love T. Higgins. I do think that they're probably going to tag him, and then the report came out today. I love Tyler Boyd, and I think he's their number 3. I think here he would be a very high quality number 2. Very, very sure hands. He's an exciting player. Good route running. I'm really a big Tyler Boyd fan, and I think he would be great here. Zeitler, like was mentioned, he's a little bit older, but he's solid. His strength is pass protection as well. I think that if we have to choose one, I'm going pass protection. I want Aaron Rodgers standing up all year. That's what I want. That's the priority. Brees will figure it out. And once you have, a little bit of concern for our passing game, I think that inherently opens up the running game as well, which we haven't seen. In the past bunch of years, our quarterback play has been so bad that teams are just stacking the box and saying, "Go ahead, Zach. If you can beat us, beat us." And he has shown, a sporadic ability to do that at best. So then you got DJ Chark. I do want to see us bring in more than one wide receiver. I think Tyler Boyd is a great number 2. We're stuck with Lazard. I think Gibson sticks around, but I'd love to see, a sure-handed, kind of accomplished guy come in addition to the guy that we're, aiming for to be the number 2. DJ Chark would be a great solidifying presence, in my opinion. And then I'd love to see Pat Elflein brought in. Fuck Wes Schweitzer. I've never seen an offensive lineman on his back so many times as we saw Wes Schweitzer this year. So, as long as they don't have to start again, that's fine. But in our offensive line situation, we have seen our number 2s and even 3s have to start significant time. Elflein is a pretty good player, and I think he made $500,000 or something cheap like that last year. So he's not going to break the bank, and I think you start stacking the offensive line with some bodies that you feel could come in for a couple games and not be a complete mess. Somebody that's starting for their first time, Phil Hansen or what was the other guy, Newman, and all these guys were like, well, I don't even know who this guy is. I'd rather see Elflein come in. So I'd like to see us focus on some free agent depth in addition to our starters on the offensive line.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I had Kevin Zeitler on my list originally, and you guys both had him, so I was like, let me yank him off my list. I'll throw in my next option. Green Bean had a defensive tackle as his 6th person that he was looking at. It was not Fletcher Cox, but that was someone that the Jets have been connected with, I think, the last 2 off seasons, if I'm not mistaken. He's a Philadelphia guy, so just right up the turnpike, come on up to MetLife Stadium. I would love to throw him next to Quentin Williams. DJ Chark, we have his wide receiver coach from this past year. He signed a 1-year, $5 million deal. He's got the size profile that I really like, that 6'4", 6'5" style of receiver. Maybe he can have a little bit more success with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball instead of having a Bryce Young and all the chaos that went on down in Carolina. They had a horrible offensive line. Everything just fell apart down there. I would like to get him, if you can get him 1 year, $5 million, that gives you the money to kind of have some flexibility with some other stuff. Jacoby Brissett, like Matt said, best backup quarterback you could probably get. I really like him. I love the adversity that he's gone through, both with the Patriots, with the Colts, and with the Browns, and then to some degree with the Washington football team down there. I think that if you bring him in, he could almost be that second coming of like a Geno Smith, where it's a 30-year-old, 31-year-old quarterback that never quite got the full shot to have it, and maybe you can develop him a little bit. No, I shouldn't say develop, but maybe he could be someone that could be a bridge quarterback in the future after Aaron Rodgers is gone. I really like him a lot, and at the very least, he's a high-end number 2 in the event you have to make it a game or 2 without him. Curtis Samuel, slot wide receiver, I want to upgrade from Cobb. I think it's going to be tough for us to attract free agent wide receivers. That's kind of the only reason I didn't have Calvin Ridley on this list. I shouldn't say the only reason. He's going to be a lot of money, and I don't know if I want to overpay for Calvin Ridley as much as I like him. I wanted to trade for him 2 years ago. I would have given up one of the draft picks for him. Curtis Samuel, though, electric player. I think he's 27, 28 years old right now, from Brooklyn, so he may want to come home and play in New York already, so that's kind of the inside track there. And then Jonah Williams, for me, like Green Bean said, there's the positional flexibility, and I'm not necessarily penciling him in at left tackle or right tackle. There's going to be warts with him. He's given up a bunch of sacks. There were issues there in Cincinnati. But I think when I look at just the human psyche, you go from a situation where they traded for, or they sign Orlando Brown to a massive contract. They kick you over to the other side. You demand a trade. You no longer want to be in Cincinnati. Maybe you're just looking for a fresh start. Here come the New York Jets. Day 1 of free agency, they say, hey, we want you here to protect Aaron Rodgers. We think you're the guy that can get this done. If his value is $13 million, that's great. I'm totally fine with that. I love the positional flexibility that he offers because then it gives you that illusion going into the draft that you could have Jonah Williams at left tackle. And like Woody Johnson said, we have AVT and we need guards, implying that AVT is playing one of the tackles. So now you have Jonah Williams and AVT as your tackles going into the draft, at least hiding to some degree what you might want to do at number 10 overall. And if Olu Fashanu or Joe Alt winds up falling in the draft, you take one of them. Jonah Williams kicks over to right tackle, and then AVT's back over to left guard, which is where I would particularly want to have him land anyway. Or maybe you take Funga instead of, you don't have Olu or Alt there, or maybe you want JC Latham or one of those types of tackles that are more of a right tackle. Then you can keep Jonah Williams on the left-hand side. I do think Jonah Williams will play significantly better with Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball behind him. Like the offensive line to me, as bad as it was the last few years, you got to remember we've had the worst quarterback play for years now. And going from Zach to Rodgers, there is no wider gap that you could possibly have at a position group, and especially a position that is so incredibly important like quarterback. So I think the offensive line isn't as bad as we thought it was. It's not like, obviously we got to get the tackles, we got to improve it, but I think it's going to look dramatically better with Rodgers back there than what it did with Zach the last 3 years. So those are our lists.